Hello, my name is Daniele Tessaro. I'm the associate winemaker at Barboursville Vineyards in Barboursville, Virginia. Um, the wine from Barboursville Vineyards that was selected for the governor's case in 2026 is Vermentino Reserve 2024. So this wine comes from a planting of Vermentino grapes that we have on site at Barboursville. It's about 6 acres of plantings at around 600 feet of elevation, which for Virginia is not too high, not too low. It allows us to have a good protection against late frosts, but also to have quicker ripening in the summertime. The planting was mostly done in 2011 and 2012 with clones, mostly Italian clones, with some French clones. The Italian one tends to be a bit more mineral, a bit more fruit forward. The French one tends to give a little bit more body, a little bit more structure. So it's a good balance. We selected those to have a good balance and to try to achieve a wine that would remind us of the great Vermentinos that are made in Italy, especially in Liguria and Sardinia. Our now CEO and President Luca Paschini is from Piemonte. So growing up, he tasted a lot of Vermentinos. Liguria is not far from Piemonte, actually it borders it. And so when the idea came to plant it, his idea was to try to do something at that level of quality. And about 16 years later, we can probably say that we got there. But for the vineyard aspect, we have about 1,600 vines per acre, so the spacing is quite standard, heavily mechanized. We harvest by machine. Prior to that, in vintages that require it, we do a lot of selection in the vineyard to just leave the best grapes to try to maintain the quality across the different vintages. 2024 in particular was a very dry vintage, especially June and July. June was very hot and dry. July was a normal July for Virginia, a bit less rainy than usual. May and April were cooler and relatively wet, which is great in early and mid-spring. So we had an early ripening, great concentration of flavors and all the components that give this wine minerality, while keeping the freshness. We are very careful to not let all of our grapes, in particular white grapes, overripe. And we picked at a not too high of a sugar content in order to preserve this acidity, this freshness. But the vintage allowed us to have a superior concentration and minerality in this wine. The winemaking on this wine is relatively simple. That's a constant on all of our wines. We do a lot of work in the vineyard, even from planting on, trying to select the best sites for the best grapes, and selecting the clones and the rootstock. So we try to not have to fix or remedy anything in the winery. By doing that, the winemaking can be very straightforward. This is a wine that is fermented in stainless steel. It's aged in stainless steel on the lees for about 10 months. There's no oak aging in here. There's no malolactic in order to preserve the freshness and the fresh fruit aromatics. We use selected yeasts, and the fermentation is temperature controlled. So it's a very textbook, easy fermentation and wine management, because we're lucky to have a crew that is headed by our viticulturalist Fernando Franco, who do an excellent job outside in the vineyards, and make our job much more easy in the cellar. This is a white wine that is driven by fruit and floral aromatics and a pronounced minerality. Vermentinos from Italy, especially particularly the ones from Liguria and from Sardinia, they're often described like you can taste the sea. These plantings, because of the conformation of these two regions, out of necessity, are usually pretty close to the shores, and so people forever said that there is this maritime influence on the flavors and the way that the wine tastes. Our Vermentino is definitely not close to any shores. It's in central Virginia. It's on clay soil, but the minerality is what really drives this wine. And so we actually think now that the varietal has this strong personality, and with minerality I mean that literally that perception of almost saltiness, almost umami kind of sort of idea that makes it the perfect wine for summertime. It's very refreshing, although it doesn't have a super high acidity like Sauvignon Blanc has, for example. So in essence, this is what the great Vermentinos are, and I think ours is one of those. It's a wine that is extremely fresh and mineral and perfect for summertime. I think overall it's a combination of style and the quality of the wine itself. Stylistically, we've seen for the past probably two and a half decades that white wines especially tend to be preferred in their more natural form. So with not a lot of intervention, specifically oak and malolactic. So our Vermentino, because of the type of winemaking that we do, is very much is of that kind. But then there's the overall quality of the wine itself. It's a white wine that, in my opinion, has everything that great white wine is expected to have. Great aromatics, but very elegant. Nothing, overboard. There's no component that overwhelms the other. Very fresh, with also a great body and great minerality that helps making the wine elegant, even though it has quite a big structure to it. So I think a good element of complexity and balance of a lot of different things in the wine make it, I think, in my opinion, stand out. For us, it's of course a great honor to have this wine represented in the governor's case. The meaning for us is as always when we have good recognition from judges, from competitions, is a recognition of the work of more than 35 people that work at Barboursville Vineyards, and also of the ownership that has invested for 50 years this year. Is our 50th anniversary that have invested energy and money into this enterprise. So every time one of our products is recognized as outstanding quality, it's a recognition for everybody. For the wine itself, I think it's a recognition of how certain grapes that may not be the most known in the world can be grown successfully in Virginia. And it's also, I think, a recognition of the inventiveness, if you will, of the whole of Virginia wine business, because we tend to not be afraid of trying different things. Vermentino for us, Nebbiolo, for example. Other people have, Albarino, Petit Manseng, which is rarely used as a dry wine in Europe. So I think this price, and Vermentino is the 8th time that ends up in the governor's case. out of I think 10 or 11 entries. So it's a constant almost of this competition, and so for us, it's a recognition of daring to do something, to try something that we know that can work, and without just staying to the big names of grapes that are recognized and maybe easier to sell but not as interesting. And also, it's a recognition of the work of a lot of people that have been at it for a lot of years.